welcome to episode 19 of the IP3 podcast. I am Kevin, joined as usual by Alex Becker and Rhea Adams. And we have a lot to talk about today.
So much to talk about.
It was
We had things to talk about, and then 3 hours ago happened, and we threw all those things away.
talk about those things later. For now, we're going to talk about the BNR announcement, pretty much getting us into, what feels like FaB 3.0. Bans touched every format, every single player format. Sorry, UPF. We had some Blitz Heroes Living Legend. Lots of stuff happening. So we'll dive right in. We'll start with the BNR announcement itself.
Also, there's a world premiere this weekend, so that too.
Yeah, I'm so excited. First one I've ever been to.
It's gonna be an absolute blast. Cannot wait. But ban and restriction announcement. We had some guesses for what it was gonna be.
We did.
I had my money on Art of War and Ancestral Harmony, just hitting anthems across the board.
I thought more like Art of War. It's been, and my logic, and I've said this a bit on Twitter, we have had several problematic aggro decks that we have banned cards from at this point in the game. Chain, by Zen. And we kept banning cards around Art of War, and just nobody really wanted to admit, like, maybe there is a common problematic thread among all of these heroes. So I called Art of War. I called Traverse the Universe, because I feel like, maybe Mysteria is just in general too strong of a set, and all three heroes are playing it, and they need to be brought down to the heavy hitters level. And then my last call was Aether Wildfire, because we've seen some Rosetta cards that are kind of insane, to say the least. We'll talk about some of those, I'm sure. And I feel like Kano needed to be hit a little bit. I just never would have guessed how they were going to hit him, because he certainly has taken some damage in this BNR.
My guesses were a bit more off the beaten path, but I feel like my thought process made sense. We were talking about this on our way back from a skirmish. My suggestion was Tiger Stripe Shuko, so that you now have Zen now has less armor to block disruptive on hits, as well as like losing him a point of value for playing Tigers, which he was already going to be playing. If you're going to play the Needles, then that's fine, but all your Tigers are going to come in for 0. And Ancestral Harmony, like a blue, like +1 damage to all your stuff. Sometimes it draws you a card to replace itself. Seems like it doesn't need to be there. And then Aspect of Tiger Body was another suggestion of mine, just to stem the like options that Zen had, and then also Aether Wildfire, because all of the meme going around is that Rosetta is just all zaps, but when the blue zaps that Kano is already playing, now if they hit, they have like on damage effects. That really juices it up. It's no longer just like, oh, the wildfire hits for 4 and then the blue zap hits for 5. It's the blue zap hits for 5 and then also gains you 2 resources. Or
I mean, let's be real. Kano wasn't going to play with banned cards anyways, because the perfect Kano deck is 57 variants of Zap and 3 Blazing Aethers. It's just objectively perfect.
It tracks.
Definitely.
Especially because you get Aether Arc and Mind Warp as honorary Majestic Zap variants. It's
totally Zap variants.
Those are my suggestions.
So that's not what happened. Nope, none of us got
not
it
even
right.
Close.
Rhea and I got Art of War right, but so James White released this particular announcement with a big sort of update on design direction for the game. And the cards that they hit in both CC and Blitz are basically all card draw effects that let you go +1 card on a single card exchange. So the list is Art of War, Bonds of Ancestry, Cash In, Orahan of Mystic Tenets, Tome of Aetherwind, Tome of Divinity, Tome of Fyendal, Tome of Firebrand. You'll notice
Wait,
that.
is Firebrand banned? I thought that was the one that they left because there was like Draconic heroes have never broken this. No, you're totally right. Okay.
Yeah.
Tome of
that
Imperial
was what
Flame
Jacob was
is still
Imperial
unhappy about.
Flame. Okay.
Yeah. So basically, in essence, each of those cards, in their own unique flavors and way, let you, or at least are used in a way such that they let you take, 1 or 2 cards and turn it into 2 or 3 cards. Just full on, just getting extra cards to play out your turn with. Sometimes on top of doing other things in addition to that. So everyone looked at this list, or it seems like a lot of people looked at this list, saw a bunch of card draw effects, and then suddenly were like, well, why wasn't XYZ included on this list? Well, dear viewer, there's a section in this announcement that covers that. Not all.
Kevin, are you saying that reading the article explains the article?
Rhea, that is exactly what I'm saying. So, on that list, honestly, I would say the most egregious one isn't even on there, or the one that would feel most egregious to think about isn't even on there, which I would say is 3 of a Kind. That card brutalized people for the better part of a year coming out of the Lexi deck.
I do think that was more of a Voltaire problem than a 3 of a Kind problem, though.
I completely agree.
None of the other Rangers use 3 of a Kind because its restriction is so difficult to get around.
Yep, completely agree. And so they mentioned 3 of a Kind, Tome of Harvests, Tome of the Arknight, and Tome of Imperial Flame, all of which were untouched by this announcement. Why? Because Tome of Harvests doesn't actually go +1 card. Even though it says draw 3, you have to have a card in arsenal, pitch 3, and spend the tome to get 3 fresh cards in hand. That is not +1 card. Tome of the Arknight, at best, is a coin flip, right? If your deck is, unless you play cards to specifically opt the top couple cards of your deck, Tome of the Arknight is inherently a coin flip. And at best,
it's a coin flip.
At best, yeah.
If your deck is perfectly half non-attacks and half attacks, it's a coin flip.
Yep. So that they referred to that as a positive kind of variance, right? You know what you're getting, or it's something that you can pitch stack to in your second cycle, which was an emphasis of this article. 3 of a Kind, that one is obviously card positive, but has the restriction of you can only play things from your arsenal. And without Voltaire there to give you 2 freebie activations with Go Again of putting things into your arsenal is not a problem. No other Ranger has generally played that card in any conventional kind of deck. And then Tome of Imperial Flame. Also very strong. Also says draw 2 cards. But also has very serious deck building restrictions and forces you to take 2 cards out of your subsequent hand and put them in your pitch zone.
Does not net any cards.
Does not net any cards. It nets some ash, it nets some resources, but it's not going plus on cards. And they even mentioned that if in the future Phoenix Flame stuff causes Tome of Imperial Flame to be broken, they would not, they might hit it in the future. It's just not today, not a today thing. I think the other big call out that I've heard is Bloodrush Bellow,
which is addressed in the article for the record.
Yeah, they also talk about that one. So if you have a problem with Bloodrush Bellow, that only goes card positive if you discard exactly Beast Within to the Bloodrush Bellow,
which is random.
Which is random and not a guarantee. You go card even, card neutral otherwise, but obviously you get a buff. But if that buff and the ability to go super wide with that is such a problem, it's similar to Three of a Kind in that you might not have a Blood Rush Bellow problem, you might have a Mandible Claw problem, because Mandible Claw just
Mhm.
makes it trivial to tack all these attacks together and do these long chains with the buffs.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
definitely are
imagine.
the issues. Voltaire and Mandible Claw.
Right.
Yeah. And those are slowly being rotated out as heroes living legend. Obviously, Voltaire isn't around anymore. Mandible Claw soon to be gone when
I think KO's over halfway
KOLLs
already, like in the vicinity of
over
600
halfway,
points.
and he's poised to be one of the better aggro decks after this extensive ban list because he wasn't hit by anything. He wasn't playing Art of War or Cashin.
Cashin is another one that you look at and you go, I've never even seen a deck play Cashin except for like the Royal Viceroy deck.
But it just it illustrates how potent Cashin was. So what Zach Bunn top aided a calling with Royal Viceroy. Uh, before I think it was before we had the heavy hitters things that gave you other new ways to
I believe
generate
so, yeah.
gold.
It was
So
Baltimore, wasn't it?
I think so. And so it was literally running Crown of Dominion to have one gold token, and then jamming 2 to 3 copies of a yellow 2 block that costs 4 in your aggro deck because it was worth it. It was worth giving up 2 armor block on a head slot and putting a couple cards that situationally look really bad when you're trying to block into your deck to once a game play Cashin for free. It's just, yeah, it's too good. And
Strong,
admittedly,
Yeah.
it's
strong
not it's
enough.
not busted right now. They also said that like Cashin and Tome of Firebrand aren't exactly
Tome
burning
of
things down at
Firebrand.
the moment. I don't.
Firebrand has me laugh so much.
Yeah, yeah. But
But like,
they said that they're using foresight with it, and they're like, look, in the future, we're gonna print more good Draconic cards and Draconic Ninja cards, and these classes. It's very very easy for a deck to come along that trivializes the requirement and makes that a 1 resource draw 2 cards. It's just too strong.
I think they also go about explaining the philosophy behind the ban really well, right?
Yes.
Flesh and Blood, one of the core tenets is every card counts, and heroes have 4 intellect for a reason. And so all of the cards that they have banned here that draw extra cards, importantly, are uninteractive with your opponent. Your opponent doesn't get any say in if it happens or not. It's not like they banned things like Snatch or Promise of Plenty that you have to interact with your opponent if you, yeah, there you
Shout
go,
out Mark
Alex. You
Morrison.
called out Promise.
And
Or even
Evan.
Kyloria, right? Like,
Yeah.
you can still draw cards in Flesh and Blood. It's just your opponent is going to have an opportunity to interact with that card draw, which I think honestly is a healthy direction for the game.
Or that card draw won't have like innate go again or instant speed.
Or that card draw won't have an 8 go again or instant speed.
Drawn to the dark dimension.
Sure. I mean, you have to jump through so many hoops for drawn that I don't think anybody's complaining.
Yeah.
If you do everything right, it was a 0 for 3.
Value. Value. But yeah, so that's the crux of why these cards that draw cards and not other cards that draw cards. The article is fantastic in going through the thought process. I highly recommend going and reading it in its entirety if you have not. I know the 3 of us have, um, but it's a good read. And honestly, it's a big change. It's a lot to swallow, but I feel encouraged about the future direction of FaB with this announcement.
I do. So I do like that they. I feel like oftentimes there's like internal design philosophies that you just like talk to with the team making the game. But the fact now that they have posted this and like presented it to all the players, I feel like is maybe not intentional, but is definitely going to let the players like keep them accountable. It's like, of course, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
there's always going to be people complaining this card like breaks the game or whatever because it's a TCG and that's what you have to do. But if there's cards that are like truly against this policy, then we can take it to LSS constructively and explain like this card
Feels like it
breaks
breaks this thing that you
it
told
breaks
us.
one of your core tenets, and this is why, and here's the documentation, and this is why I feel like this, and we just want the game to be the best that it can be.
Also, for the record, viewers, no, Sigil of Brilliance does not break the tenets they outline in this BNR, because you are spending a card to draw a card. It's Sigil of Brilliance is a solitary companion. It's just you're delaying a card for a turn cycle. It's not the same as
It's
drawing
Gorganian
a free
Tome.
card. Yeah,
It's Gorganian
yeah,
Tome on an aura. Yeah.
yeah.
The other bit, so of note, these bands are Blitz and CC. So
Which,
Blitz is getting massively overhauled.
yeah, I was about to say, for the record, I'm pretty sure the last time that the same list of cards has been banned in Blitz and CC was Drone of Brutality, which was the first ban. I'm pretty sure.
Which that was also this is a way to make our,
A,
to follow the tenets
it,
that we put forth for
yeah.
ourselves. This card has to go.
I think they did Amulet of Ice at the same time too.
Oh, you might be right.
I think. But either way, doesn't happen very often.
Yeah, doesn't happen very often.
So in addition to these bans in Blitz, we also seen Briar and Dash finally hit LL after several seasons. Zen lapped Viserai twice on his way to LLing in Blitz.
Set a new
Two
record, and
battle
it's not
hardens,
close.
2 battle hardens, and 2 weeks of skirmish season came in at
Closer to
exactly
1.5, right?
I mean, like 2 full weekends.
Yeah.
But yeah, came in won 60 skirmishes in week 2 to get exactly 300 more points, end up at 505, and leave the Blitz format forever.
Here's the part where I'm very happy that it's weekly Living Legends now, because can you imagine Zen lead this entire skirmish season and he laps himself in LL's Blitz with 1,000 Living Legend points? Like a CC
That's
worthy
wild.
LL.
I hadn't even thought of that. That's hysterical.
I've seen like some people saying that it's a bad thing that stuff can LL partway through a season, but at this point, your week 1 skirmish, like normally, like previously, you go to week 1 skirmish, the meta is the meta, and then you show up like the last week of skirmish, and the meta is the same meta. But at this point, like as of this weekend, right? Or I guess it's Sunday, right? These go into effect.
Effective the 9th.
Mm-hmm.
But there's like 3 heroes that are living legend, and now all these cards that are also banned. So like a big shakeup for your last week of skirmish.
Well, I don't think the bans are effective this last week of skirmish for Blitz. The 9th is next Monday. So these bans are not in effect for the last week of skirmish. So
I should not bring Enigma to Tampa for constructed then, is what you're saying.
Yeah, maybe. But I guess also it's not it's not like, oh well, this got unbanned, but it's not unbanned yet and showing up with banned cards. So I guess the opposite is a little more okay.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, so Briar, Zen, Dash, all LL. Rhinar very likely to follow in this final week of skirmishes, especially with the others leaving. The dearth of points has to go somewhere. So yeah, it's gonna be a interesting last week for Blitz. The format is just gonna be completely new.
I mean, once Rhinar goes, it's gonna be crazy. I think we're looking at Blaze, Victor, obviously at the top. Prism, Enigma, New Moon. Like I don't know.
Vincent, unironically.
Vincent, unironically, absolutely. Especially with the new Rosetta cards, she's going to be insane.
Yeah.
I was only able to go to 1 skirmish, and it was LL. Did you guys go to any Blitz skirmishes?
You could not pay me to go to a Blitz skirmish while Zen was legal.
I was supposed to go to one and then just I forget if I had a migraine that day or just wasn't feeling it and just didn't end up going. So I went to 3 LL skirmishes. Oh no, it was I procrastinated and accidentally fell asleep and didn't assemble Blitz Aurora in time to show up and play some uh, First Strike Aurora in Blitz. Um,
I was just wondering if either of you had actually played any.
I mean, I probably would have taken New Moon this weekend for fun, but I'll be at Tampa. Oh no, what a disaster! I'm gonna
Shucks, I
miss
guess we
New
get
Moon.
to play Rosetta.
Oh
Hooray!
shucks.
Just gotta keep rubbing it in, huh?
Sorry,
Sorry,
Alex.
Alex. We'll bring you back some cool Verdance cards.
All right. Well, just because we have plenty to talk about tonight, there's also changes to the LL format.
Yeah,
Bonds
a,
of
a big
Ancestry.
change.
I almost said Bonds of Agony. That would be wrong. Bonds of Ancestry is restricted,
Yeah,
which
that one too.
the way restrictions read is at least as written, it is one total copy of Bonds of Ancestry. Is how.
Not one of each color, one copy.
Yeah. I suppose it is possible they come out later and clarify it, and it actually is one of each color. But as of now, nothing in writing seems to support that.
I think it's
Unlikely.
just one, and I think that's intentional because, like, I mean, Zen doesn't even have to wait to draw it. He can just Zen ability and go get it. Go get his one red bombs whenever he's ready to have his giant pop off turn.
True. I wonder. I wonder if it's still even worth it to like put the Descendants in the deck, LL, when there's only
The
one
blues
Bonds
are.
for him.
I mean, the blues are probably just kind of free, right? Because like he needs blues to transcend anyways.
Also, it
I
could
don't
just be
know.
that
I'm
he
not
plays
a
blue
master.
bonds because they gets buffed by Stubbies and Art of War,
Yeah, true.
and that's just a blue card.
Interesting.
I don't know.
Maybe
Definitely will be interesting to see
also
how they
linksable.
adjust for that format.
Yep.
Because there are Zen actually does play links in some Living Legend matchups. So yeah, maybe it is one blue bonds.
Let's go. Bill.
Um, but yeah, so skirmish results for a couple weekends of Living Legend. Zen was pretty cleanly on top. Uh, 16 wins one weekend and then 13 the next weekend. Uh, only one behind Prism, who was tops that weekend. Uh, so it's like Zen with 29 wins, and then the next highest is 16, I think. So seems like a reasonable uh, bit of change to make. And I don't know. Hopefully, it's enough.
I I think the format is in a pretty good place now. We'll see. Obviously, that's completely untested. It's just my theorizing. But I also am very biased because I love playing Prism Sculptor of Arclight. I think the deck is really well positioned now.
I played Dromai
The,
this weekend. Got second place.
that's wild and awesome.
No,
Hey,
no
what'd you
frostbite.
lose to in the finals?
Uh, the Prism Sculptor of Arclight that I beat in Swiss already.
I just have really been impressed with Prism's hero power seems so bad until you pair it with Rapture, and it's just like, oh,
Plus two.
I gain at least 2 life every single turn. At least. Because if the shield lives for a third turn, oh, it's over.
Yeah, it's nutty. Luminaris is not okay.
Luminaris is what a wild card.
Wild,
Herald of
wild card.
Protection is very gross against dragons and Ashwings.
Hmm.
I do think it's interesting though because we've seen so Stubbies was the card that I had my eye on for this announcement in the format. It felt like the low hanging fruit of how can you take this deck down a notch, and then equipment in Zen kind of just says pretend all of your opponents are Prism Awakener of Soul. It's just starting with 8 damage on the board, and I don't know. I guess it's possible that wouldn't be surprised at some point if Stubbies is out of LL, but you know,
I mean,
Fi's had it for a long time with Art of War and other stuff, and it hasn't been a problem. So
yeah, so that's what I was gonna say, right? Is like Stubby Fi is the gut check aggro deck of the format. You must be this tall to ride the ride. And Zen just kind of did everything that Stubby Fi wanted to do and better, right? Stubby Fi didn't play Bonds, so taking Bonds away from Zen and making him play weird tighter stuff actually means that Stubby Fi has a niche back in the meta, and we know that that niche isn't too good. And so I think it makes sense leaving Stubbies around because it was only broken in the context of getting extra free chain links with Bonds of Ancestry. So I think it's actually a really smart ban from them.
Also, at the end of the article, they do say that Living Legend is like going to be one of their premier formats going forward, with it like featuring in skirmish season, and then also the next skirmish season. They said November, and then also there's a whole calling dedicated to it as well. So, like, I'm sure they will be keeping an eye on the meta, and if Stubbies becomes a problem, they'll just
yeah, more time to evaluate
Take care of it.
before it really needs to be in the perfect place for
Mhm.
that calling.
because all the other decks that are, that hero or that equipment piece is playing against also do very silly things, and there's a reason that they're Living Legend.
Yep.
I am
So
very excited for Chicago.
it's gonna be a blast. So all of your tomes, they're banned now. Can't play them in Blitz. Not all of them. Can't play them in
Ray
Blitz. Can't
Bradbury would
play
be
them in
proud.
CC. Yeah.
Burn those books.
Bye-bye books. Uh, but they will still have a home in LL.
Yeah.
You know,
Your
that's this
your art
game's
of
modern. It's where you do the busted things. So grab
your
your
art
Art of
of wars
Wars.
aren't worthless. They're just worth less.
I disagree. Cold Foil Art of War in particular, I think is just beyond useless, and everyone should fire sale them immediately.
I mean, correct.
Specifically
Yes,
Kevin.
you should buy list them at $20 because no one definitely wants those anymore. No
Definitely.
Tag Kevin.
one. No one.
If you really don't want your cold foils, I will gladly give you. Well, I'll be generous and say $100 a pop.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, Arclight Sentinel is unplayable in Classic Constructed now. You should definitely sell me your cold foils because they're worthless. Tome of Divinity is gone.
Yeah.
Prism can't combo it without Tome of Divinity. It's useless. Tech is dead.
All right.
It's not dead.
Bad segue. Speaking of Prism, what
Speaking
do
of
all these
Prism.
changes mean for Classic Constructed?
Well, Prism is worse, but not like dead. A lot of gut reactions, I think, were declaring decks dead, and in general, I think that's not really true. Tome of Divinity was the worst combo card in Prism. It obviously was a good combo card. It's the worst one. A lot of times you play Tome of Divinity, you draw 3 yellow heralds, and you're like, okay, I guess I'm not comboing. I lose.
Yeah.
I think Enigma might actually be positioned as the better illusionist in Classic Constructed now. But
Like
I
Prism
think
just becomes the aggro illusionist, kind of like Dromai was.
okay.
It's like
I don't.
you
I don't.
gotta run the reprimands, you gotta run the wraths.
All right. Well, reprimand, you might be losing me, but
People run 7-power stuff.
Yeah, from a ninja standpoint, Zen needs rebuilt from the ground up.
yeah.
Katsu, fortunately, probably pretty much just dead in the water at the moment. Losing.
But so yes, but they did address in the article like we know Katsu fans. It really hurts losing Bonds in Art of War. for the record, what you were doing with bonds was also not okay. And I feel like, Katsu was at least a little more interactive. He needed to hit to get one of his bonds, but it really wasn't okay those turns where,
Yeah.
You lay down your whole hand blocking and Katsu still has a triple bonds 40 damage turn, and you're like, okay.
And ends on dishonor.
Or
Yeah.
just the value play of, oh well, the ancestral empowerment was here to push over by 1 on this attack that I did try and block. You hit and you get to turn whatever you cantrip draw into. Oh, it's a 0. Great. It's now a 0 for 8 because we're going to get bonds and we're going to get another 0 for 4. It was a lot.
I feel like Katsu, you could tell the writing was on the wall when they just started completely cutting master momentum and just always playing links. It's like, okay, something is wrong here. We're not playing Katsu anymore. We're playing Bonds of Ancestry, the deck. That's just my opinion. I'm not a Ninja player.
I agree.
With everything getting toned down, it's possible that Katsu can just lean into a different combo line, cough cough break tide, and it can go back to running Mask of Momentum, and that's something that will draw you cards if people don't want to block.
Yeah, at the very least, he's still the best Kodachi ninja, and Kodachis are a very good weapon. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise.
I don't know. I don't know if I agree with that. That Katsu's the best Kodachi ninja.
Who's the best Kodachi ninja?
I think it could very well be FaB.
I don't know. I'll have to think about that.
Yeah, I don't have data to back it up. It's more of a gut feeling. But
okay.
FaB also gets a bit worse without Art of War, but he already wasn't doing a ton. But
FaB is, if you think Katsu's dead in a ditch, FaB is rough.
Yeah.
FaB is in a rough spot.
FaB is really, really looking forward to Uprising 2 Electric Boogaloo.
It's okay though, because he got those legendary boots in Part the Mistveil that everyone bought out the Phoenix forms for.
Awkward.
Oh right, that was dust that no one wanted.
That was a pretty funny accidental juke. Kano without tomes. Still a wildfire deck because wildfire is still there. So if you're a wizard, why aren't you running wildfire? Because you just probably should be.
I have seen so much doom and gloom about this, and I think it's crazy. Okay, conventional Kano stacking as you know it, where he was doing the really messed up thing, sure, that's dead. To think that he is not competitively viable, considering the things that deck could do that never involve a pitch stack, and all the gas he's getting in Rosetta, is I think there's some real doomer hours going on right now that will turn out to not be true as time goes on.
If they don't make any more changes, I expect Kano to Living Legend before 2026. In 2025, I think Kano will Living Legend at some point if no other changes happen.
I mean, Dash is going to beat him as the first original 8 hero to LL, right?
I don't know. Viscerai is about to get juiced.
Yeah, but how many points does Viscerai have?
A little over 500.
All right. I would bet money that Dash beats Viscerai.
I am inclined to agree with you.
Yeah.
I thought you were about to drop the spiciest take there, Alex. I was ready for it.
I mean, maybe, but I think that Dash IO might be the best aggro deck in the game now.
That is
especially with getting an armory.
A hot take.
Especially getting an armory deck that some of the cards we've seen out of there are Whoa,
You know what other deck was really strong and got no cards touched that I think might be a real problem now?
Riptide?
New?
Well, I was gonna say Azalea, but yes.
Oh,
Also Riptide. No, I think
No. The arcane damage will kill Riptide. Riptide will be dead until arcane damage is
it's
no more.
it's funny that you mentioned new. I think this might actually none of her cards got banned, but I think this is a net negative for new. Like she wasn't strongly favored into Zen, but Zen representation going down is going to mean that Enigma's difficult matchups are going to increase in representation. Specifically, Enigma and Victor, I think, are both going to get more popular, and they are. Well, Victor's actually quite good for new. Enigma can be a real pain. Can be a real pain.
And there's other matchups that we just don't even know, right? Like, do warriors become playable? Like, does Dorinthia
Yeah, is
on
Hatchet Dory's back?
Bronze or Hatchdory? We don't
I
even know how those decks play into new because it just wasn't a good idea to play them.
yeah.
Hatchet Dory is a good call though. I think that deck can probably just fatigue Zen, to be honest.
Maybe.
Now
Very
at least.
possible. Yeah, I think Zen is still the best ninja in the format.
Not close. I agree.
Uh, yeah, like definitely gonna have to retool it, but Traverse the Universe is still here. Um,
In fact, it is, and I'm very excited about it. I really
yeah,
thought that card was going to die.
and Zen might even get to upgrade boots because now that we're not banishing that tiger with Art of War, does it need to be in hand? No, it can be the more flexible pouncing paws option that lets you battle worm one when you
That's
want and then break it later, put it in banish.
that's a really good call, actually. Yeah.
Yeah,
Or Breeze Rider boot.
Or
You're
or
running
I was about
a
to say, is
combo
it
of
Breeze
boots.
Rider boots? Yeah.
Or just Snapdragon together. Just be boring.
nah, Breeze Rider boots way cooler.
For sure.
Breezies are definitely the cooler.
But yeah, I think it's still, like it's still just gonna be on everyone to can you hang with MST? Um,
Yeah.
or is there can you not just be utterly decimated by one of those three and hang with them, and that's gonna dictate the shape of the next format. Runeblades definitely uh, seem pretty well equipped to keep Enigma from becoming too much of a problem.
Hmm.
So there's the split damage is always just a little tougher to stop, and Vincent kind of is the super emergency button if Enigma with a bunch of 10Ks and super huge battlefields filled with auras is a problem. Um,
It
Oh
does
yeah.
feel like with all the Rosetta cards we've been seeing that Runeblade, like, one of their class identities is split damage, like you said. But I feel like with this new set coming out with the cards we've seen, I feel like another one of their identities is going to be like aura hate. Like, we are the class that
yeah,
if people are playing auras, I'm playing Runeblade, and your auras are going to be no more.
yeah, and the Rosetta's giving us some decent safety valve options there too. Sort of a getting ahead of ourselves with a bit of spoilers, but Earth has Summer's Fall that can put an aura on the bottom of an opponent's deck. Lightning has Blast to Oblivion. That I forget where it puts said aura, but it takes it out of play
Hand.
back to hand.
Yeah.
Okay, so that can you know unsummon it, make them have to replay it out. Um, the Lightning Majestic, I think it's the split card for Aurora that is
Vaporized, right?
Vaporize Shock.
Yeah.
It's like based on how much arcane damage you deal or have dealt. In
It's just destroy. It's just Doomblade, right?
Oh, is
On
it?
target
Oh,
aura.
geez, yeah.
I think so. Yeah.
You just
Um,
have to deal damage at a cost, I believe.
Mhm.
okay, yeah, that makes sense. Even Wizard got something in Pop the Bubble, which admittedly a little tougher on how they can make that happen, but there is a card in
Yeah.
Wizard that can kill auras now, so that's a step in the right direction. Um,
I will do my best to make that work for Icelander and Living Legend, but I'm not hopeful about that destroying Spectra very easily.
yeah, probably not. Um, the classic Runic Reclamation on hit destroy an aura, which for particularly Enigma isn't quite as effective because if you're hitting, you're already popping the wards anyways. Um, but it's still a threatening one if it's a Spectra heavy aura situation.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and then current leading favorite card for me in the new set, Condemned to Slaughter. It is
That's
a
insane.
it's a really good card. So stat wise, it is a Runeblade come to fight. So it's a free block, Runeblade action, costs 1, has a full cycle. The red gives your next Runeblade attack this turn +3, and then you may destroy an aura you control. If you do, each opponent destroys an aura permanent they control. Go again. So it's like a Runeblade aura hating come to fight, and I think that card is just going to be great. Um, I feel like I could just write an article that's specifically on why Condemned to Slaughter is so strong and has a ton of utility in many formats. But yeah, it's a really easy card that I could imagine at least Viscerai probably runs it as a 6 of. The blue is a really good blue 3 block kind of safety valve thing, and um, yeah, so I
It's just an
think
option for what you're gonna end up like playing against in that meta. There's a bunch of illusionists running around, and I don't have the action points to deal with Spectra, so I'm just gonna play this card and
yeah,
be
no,
really
that's
sad.
probably the best point is that it's a way to deal with a board state on a deck that is trying to, or a build that's trying to emphasize going a little taller rather than wider potentially.
Can the Warriors get some of that, please? Thank you.
I
Well, Warriors got gas in the expansion slot, or at least Kasai did. That was spoiled since our last episode, right?
uh,
I think so. Must be.
I think
Un,
so
un,
because I think last time we talked
unsheathed.
about playing for the worst in Splatter Skull.
Yes, yeah. So unsheathed, zero cost, 3 block warrior action. Next sword attack gets +3, and when this attacks, if its power is greater than twice its base, it gets go again. So it's +3 if you go to 5 power on your Centauri Saber, which is base power 2. 5 is more than 4, which is twice 2. So it just says 0 for 3, your first sword attack has go again.
What
Kasai
if
needed some help. This is not bad help.
that's very real help,
This is real good.
and I think at that rate, like there have been versions of Dory in the past, even with Dawn Blades and stuff that uh are much more about like front loading buffs. Um, and it's one other buff on Dawnblade, and cool, you did it. You got to go again.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it's a card that's always gonna get you, that 3 value. It's gonna be really hard for it not to. Um, Definitely a new
Bit of
staple.
bit of a Nanba with hot streak, but it's kind of Warriors' least of their problems right now.
Yeah, I would say it is a good card but as a Warrior player. It's kind of just more of what we already have,
Okay.
which I'm like not gonna complain about because consistency is good. But
It's not really helping you solve problems for the deck.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
It
Gotcha.
it's not helping any of our bad matchups, or
Mhm.
it's kind of just doing the thing we were already doing, which is good, and I'm here for it. But
it also specifically says your next sword attack. So this cannot be a Hatchet's Dory
Not a
card
hatchet card.
or a
Mhm.
Decimator card.
I think no one is sad that it's not a Decimator card.
Agreed. I agree with that. All right, so
So
let's go ahead and
while
just.
we're
Oh,
on, hmm?
yeah. Go
Well, while
ahead.
we're
fight,
on
fight, fight, fight.
expansion slot cards, I just figured you would really want to talk about your favorite new Briar card ever, because you can actually play Blossoming Spellblade now.
Heck yes. So Regrowth Shock is a expansion slot split card, the only one revealed so far outside of the main set. And it is a blue pitch, 0 cost on both halves. The left half is Regrowth. It's an Earth Runeblade action. The right half is Shock. It's a lightning instant. Regrowth says, return an action card with cost less than X from your graveyard to your hand, where X is the total arcane damage you've dealt to opposing heroes this turn. Go again. Shock says, deal 1 arcane damage to any target. They could have printed this as a blank piece of cardboard that's a blue 3-block with these types, and it still would have been cool. Because the Blossoming Spellblade is the Earth and Lightning dual fuse card, which meant it was extremely difficult to dual fuse it because there's only one pulse of Candlehold.
You can only have one in your deck.
Right.
It's legendary.
Right. And this now suddenly, instead of one dual fuse, like layup to dual fusing, you now get to run 4 total, and it's on a blue block 3, so the rate is already very solid. It's also a non-attack action that has go again on it. So if you get to do the cool combo turn with Blossoming Spellblade and cast some cards from your graveyard for free, you can recoup action points because this has go again. And I don't know for certain, but I would assume that when you can play Regrowth off of Blossoming Spellblade, you can also just free roll shocking your opponent again too. So.
Sure, I mean, surely. Yeah, and that's kind of the beautiful part of it, right? Blossoming banishes this. You close the combat chain. Blossoming dealt 1 arcane. And now Shock deals 1 arcane, so Regrowth can buy back your Blossoming. And so you just get to kind of loop them. Blossoming banishes, though, so you're out of Regrowths once you're out of Regrowths.
That's fair. Nobody wants infinite Blossoming Spellblades. Even me. I just want it to be a playable card.
Something about core game tenets and drawing too many cards.
It's Living Legend. It doesn't count.
Okay, you're not wrong.
You're supposed to do.
I don't really think. So I think it'll get run because it's a 3-block blue Earth non-attack action. I think it'll get run in LL Briar because of the stat line and everything. I don't really know that the text on the card matters a ton for the Channel Mount Heroic aggro builds. And I don't think that the addition of 3 more dual type cards suddenly makes Blossoming Spellblade Briar like a LL contender, but it can make it a playable deck that you wouldn't have to feel embarrassed trying to bring to some LBL events competing with the other stuff. And when it works, it's going to be beautiful. Absolutely beautiful.
Cool when it works. That's the kind of Runeblade deck that I'm actually interested in, just because it's doing something really cool, right?
Big time cool factor.
Right. What else we got?
The last expansion slot card that we haven't talked about previously is Gustwave of the Second Wind, also known as Underwhelming Gustwave.
Underwhelming Gustwave.
It's a 0-for-4 majestic ninja attack action that blocks for 3, and then it combos with Surging Strike. If Surging Strike was the last attack this combat chain, this gets go again.
This card has Katsu in the art, and that's really cool. That's really cool.
It's rendered more disappointing by what's had to go on with Bods of Ancestry recently, between the initial bans of a couple colors, now the full ban, and then the restriction in Living Legend. Someday they're gonna print Bods of Ancestry 2 and make this work in a way that feels satisfying. I'm confident of that. It's just definitely a kick in the teeth for the Katsu players for this set. That in the long run, things will work out, but rough day.
It's Fluster Fist with conditional go again. That's it.
Yep.
Moving on.
Yeah.
Where do we want
what
to
else
start?
do we want to cover? Because there's a lot. We definitely can't do everything, but what's screaming at us? Fiona's Fighting Spirit downshifted to common. That's going to be huge in commoner.
That's a cool one.
You can essentially just play Constructed Icelander in Commoner now, except for Stormstriders, which is a ridiculous thing to say.
As well as Aether Quickening too, right?
Aether Quickening
Aether
also
Quickening all
downshiftted.
common now, yeah.
Both of the
Also
Arcanite as well.
insane.
Not quite as
Well,
impactful in all likelihood, but hey, it's a
both
3-block non-attack action.
both
That's
teams played
valuable.
hard.
Yeah,
I believe
and Rune Blades
Meet
were
and
here
Greet
too.
is Meet and Greet also was originally a rare, right? And
I
it's
double
now
checked.
common.
It was a common.
Okay.
It was a common originally, so that's not new.
Ooh, okay. This card is new. And this was the moment where I was like, all right, maybe they are cooking with Wizard this set. Glyph Overlay is a wizard rare. It is a 1-cost, 3-block wizard action. Pitches red, yellow, blue across the cycle, of course. And it says deal X +3 or +2 or +1 as colors change. Deal X +3 arcane damage to target hero, where X is the number of aura permanents you control with sigil in their name. Surge, if this deals more than 3, 2, 1 damage, gain 1 life, then shuffle all aura permanents you control with sigil in their name into their owner's deck, which coincidentally immediately triggers all of your sigil leave the battlefield effects. And, even if you just have 1 sigil out, it was a 1-for-4 that gains a life on Surge. This card is there's a lot going on here. This card reads like a Majestic, and it's a draft rare, which makes me very excited. The last time that happened, it was this little card in Outsiders called Bonds of Ancestry.
Yeah,
There's just so much to unpack.
the
with
rates
it.
there, the synergy potential with it is crazy. I mean, there's at least a dozen sigils in the set, I think, right?
Yeah, I mean, you play this, it surges, your sigil of temporal manipulation gets gets shuffled into your deck. You flip the top card, it's another glyph overlay. You just start over again.
Yeah,
It's
going to be
good
some
stuff.
really interesting solitaire shenanigans with glyph overlay and the sigils. If you like cards changing zones, this is the set for you.
So not specific to cards, but of the cards that we have spoiled at this point, I was doing some examination and looking at things. So just some things that I noticed that people can use as they like at the world premiere, since I won't be there, giving away free information. So for wizards, there are 9 3-block non-attack actions.
That's a lot.
Embodiment of Earths, making all those 4 blocks. Pretty good if you're a Verdance player. Meanwhile, Runeblade has 3 3-block non-attack actions. So
that's not a lot.
That's not a lot.
Comparatively.
But the fact that Florian is able to get 2 embodiments of Earth when things are going well makes that even out a little bit. Lightning only has 1 attack with native go again that has no hoops to jump through. So like Lightning Surge does have go again, but you have a hoop that you have to play it from Arsenal.
Fry's the only one, right?
Fry. Yep.
Which is a 0-for-3 blocked 0.
Ball lightning without the cool part.
Yeah. Heaven's Claws is the only lightning 3-block. Earth has 4 cards with Decompose printed on them, not including the Majestic Shattered Crown or anything we haven't seen yet. There are 3 cards that give amp on discard or play, like not including equipment. So amp seems kind of reasonably rare.
And also very powerful in a format without Arcane Barrier, which just playing the Blitz decks has shown us.
Yeah, I've actually played quite a bit of the Blitz decks. And the set challenges what you know about the math of Flesh and Blood.
We'll get into that in a future episode, I feel.
Yeah. Rhea Rhea and I going to battle over how much one life is worth.
I'm
There
gonna
is a
MC
heated
it.
argument going on behind the scenes about if one life is worth one value. We will get into it in the future.
Just a note, if anybody hasn't noticed, Flash, which is a lightning non-attack action card, can give attacks or non-attacks go again.
Yes.
So if you are
very good
playing,
for Acilio.
yeah, if you're playing Acilio, you can play a Flash into a zap into another zap because there's plenty of zaps to go around. And then Earth has a card that discards for 2 health, Fruits of the Forest, yum yum. And Lightning has a card that prevents 2 damage on discard. The Earth one is a 3 for 7, and the Lightning one is a 1 for 5. So.
Yum Yum gets me every time. Yeah, so Runeblade got a bunch of cool cards.
Yeah. Yes, they did. We're doing aura shenanigans again. This is another basically or is it the not the expansion sets, supplemental sets. With when we got Shrill of Skullform, and I believe Runeblood Incantation. I think that was that Dynasty or was that?
Incantation was Everfest.
Yeah. Okay. So we must going all the way back to Everfest with some of these mechanics. A lot of the vast majority of this batch of Runeblade cards care about or interact with auras in some way. So we'll start off with a couple Runeblade Raging Onslaught variants. So they're 3 cost, 3 block, 7 attacks in red. The first one is the one I think is the coolest, Splintering Deadwood. It says, when this attacks or hits, you may destroy an aura you control. If you do, create a Runechant token. So if you have auras to burn, this can be a 9 value attack potentially. If it hits, if you have the auras to sack, has a really cool interaction with Florian. If Florian is activated and you have an aura to chew through, you can destroy said aura, get 2 Runechants, and then if your physical damage hits, you can destroy one of the Runechants you just made and turn that into 2 Runechants. So it's a really cool propagation flavor to go with Florian's growth and rebirth vibes, which is really sweet.
But it's fine though, because the only auras that Runeblades ever have are just Runechants. So you're just destroying a Runechant, make a Runechant, right? There's
Fuck
no other
no.
auras to.
There's a joke behind that.
Is that a
Arcane
cussing
cussing.
joke?
It is an arcane cussing joke. So there's a new
Are you going to
common.
apologize, Kevin?
No, I will not. That bit is specifically reserved for the Discord.
Okay.
So Arcane Cussing is a new Runeblade action aura. Costs 1, 2 block, has go again. It's basically a souped up Bloodspill invocation. So it says, when you deal or are dealt damage, destroy this. When this leaves the arena during your turn, create 3 Runechant tokens. So, if you have an Arcane Cussing in play Splintering Deadwood, you can splinter your Arcane Cussing, and get your 3 Runechants, and 1 more for your trouble, because the Arcane Cussing, sacking, and Splintering Deadwood gives you a 4th there. So, it's a much, much better Bloodspill Invocation. It's going to be a very potent card in this limited environment, and may be constructed. That remains to be seen.
I played a bit of the Blitz decks. I've played most of the heroes now, but I've done some filthy, disgusting things with Florian and Arcane Cussing. Just like 11 Runechants unlimited. It's
the,
very silly.
the part about that's craziest to me is you're doing silly things with Florian and Limited, and you don't even have access to all the cards that are like, oh, well, discount this equal to how many Runechants I control. You don't have Amplify the Arcanite getting played for free at the end of breaking Arcane Cussing to do something else. And
Yeah.
it's Florian's going to be a very, very neat hero. But back to the Runeblade Raging Onslaughts. We got another one. It's more just limited filler evasion. It's called Vantage Point. If you've played or created an aura this turn, this gets overpower. Uh, really solid limited card. Maybe there's a universe where it gets played in constructed. Don't think that's particularly likely, but the rate on it is a fine baseline. Uh, Condemned to Slaughter we touched on earlier. It's the Runeblade Come to Fight. I think that is currently my pick for favorite card in this set. And I think it's going to be really strong and played a lot of places. Malefic Incantation. Another new Runeblade aura. This one blocks for 2, has go again, costs 0, has a cycle, uh, enters with reverse counters on it, and once per turn, when you play an attack action card, remove a verse counter from this. If you do, create a Runechant token. So this is sort of a, it's a riff on Runeblood Incantation. Card has an opportunity to be very, very good in Vinset and or Viserai, and probably Florian on top of
I
that.
think all of them. I think it is a big sleeper because Florian, assuming that your hero power is on, it just becomes a card for 6. Like, just gives you 6 ring chance over 3
Yeah.
turns. And then
Trust.
yeah, that's it. And then for Viserai, it's a rune chant like the turn that you play it, and then a rune chant each turn. But each of those rune chants, oftentimes in Viserai, equals a resource as well. So it's 1 damage, and so it's 4 damage and 3 resources, potentially, assuming that your hand line up. And then Vinset, it just allows you to start your turn with an extra rune chant, which pays for your rune gates.
I think the biggest potential with Vinset with this card is customarily you'd want a go again enabler so you could follow up with either Flail or Nebula Blade to have a chance to end your turn on a rune chant. Malefic Incantation, you can stack a rune gate up really, really tall, swing with that one tall rune gate, get a rune chant from Incantation, and start your next turn with 2, which is huge, huge boon for a Vinset deck. So a lot of interesting deck building implications there. Particularly because Sonata Galaxia is a card that exists, and we're getting several new, very, very playable Blade Auras. Which that was, the original issue with that card was it was after Runeblood Incantation, it was Blessing of Occult, which is not a constructed playable rate card.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like they have a couple of attempts at fixing the blessing cycle in this set. They have a Earth one that is an aura that has go again and pops at the start of your turn to gain 3 life, which is like a fixed blessing of patience was the guardian one.
Yes.
And Arcane Crescent both kind of feel like fixed versions of blessings from Dynasty. And might see play? Question mark. Galaxia is really cool though. Like,
Yeah,
we were joking about how we thought there was going to be a Sonata in the set because of the card guy's spoiler about Rosetta Idol or whatever.
mm-hmm.
Turned out to be Hit the High Notes, but it almost feels like Sonata Galaxia is an honorary card in Rosetta with how many tutor targets it has.
Yeah, it definitely gets some new life breathed into it. These next few I can run through pretty quick because they're variations on, existing cycles of cards. So you mentioned Hit the High Notes. It is a cycle attack action, base of 4 power, 3 block, and the red, so they all get the same buff, but the red comes in for 4 base. It says if you've played or created an aura this turn, this gets +2 power. It is Shrill of Skull form for 1 less cost, for 1 less buff when it's activated. Very much appreciate the cycle is the way that it is, because if Hit the High Notes was a base of 3 and got +3, suddenly this is Belittle's new best friend in Runeblade, and all the Runeblades forever would just play those cards together and it would be gross. But yeah,
You
honestly,
might
just
do it anyways with the yellow one.
yeah, true. In chain, yellow hit the high notes, and red belittle can be like a 3-card 15 damage turn. So it's respectable, respectable. Um, but just nice to have the flexibility on a 1-cost version of Shrill. When Rosetta Thorn left and decks needed Reaping Blade value-wise is pretty strictly worse, this maybe opens up the avenue of, Nebula Blade Viscerai aggressive lists being real, because they have cards that the rate is appropriate for that let Nebula Blade swings be a reality. Uh, this next card is a tragedy for not having the word Spellblade in its name, but it is called Hocus Pocus. It is a Moonblade attack action, 3 block, 3 attack in red, costs 0. It says when this attacks, create a rune chant token. So this is, the one further step down from Spellblade Assault and Spellblade Strike. Now we have Hocus Pocus. It scales a little differently because the other one's scaled in number of rune chants created, and this just takes the power down a notch. But all in all, a fine role player. The blue will probably see play. The red might see play in some Viscerai lists as a chain ender. It's looks like a 0 for 5 if Viscerai is active. But a nice little role player there for sure. And then our last new card, not the last new card, but the last one that has some similar offshoots is Rune Rager Swarm, which was Breezy's spoiler card. That it's a 0 for 3, 3 block. If you've played or created an aura this turn, this gets go again. And one of the issues I had in the past when trying to see if I could build a Nebula Blade Viscerai deck is you lose Rune Flash, which is a really good extender in the version that starts with 2-cost attacks and ends on a 1-cost weapon. And Rune Rager Swarm, it's kind of just going to fill in that role. It's a solid extender. It's a lot like Runic Reckoning in that it's, almost always getting you the 3 value you want out of it. And it will serve in its role admirably. Last but not least among the Runeblade cards, Vinset's favorite, Deadwood Dirge, is a Runeblade action, cost 0, 2 block, and it says destroy an aura you control. You do, create 3 rune chant tokens, go again. You know who has a rune chant at the start of her turn? Every turn?
Who has a rune chant at the start of her turn every turn?
Vinset has a rune chant
What?
every turn. So in Vinset, this kind of reads like a yellow read the runes with go again kind of situation.
Hey, that sounds extremely playable in a deck that wants to rune gate 3 every turn.
Right, you are. And also, it just says destroy an aura you control. So you can destroy arcane cussings with this. You can destroy, if you have random embodiments or other like sigils in play that aren't doing anything for you, you can turn those into rune chants.
Or maybe like a pesky ranger gives you a blood rot pox token from a lace with blood root, and you can destroy the blood rot and make 3 rune chants.
Or
Which
a
is
pesky
insane.
Icelander says, I'm going to hypothermia you this turn, and you're like, nah, I'm going to turn that into 3 rune chants, because that is an aura
All right, well,
that I control.
Now you're hurting my feelings.
I'm sorry. Yeah, the aura destruction aspects of this set are very interesting and have really cool ramifications across all the formats. I know it's only going to reveal itself further as we play with it, but Vinset is very pleased with the BNR announcements and the spoilers so far this set.
And Wizard got 6 zaps.
Yeah, that's it. All right.
Yep.
That's it.
Unironically, they got 6 zaps.
That wasn't a joke. We got
Yep.
6 zaps.
There's 6 of them.
And we got 6 zaps. We got some cool Scalding Rain variants that have slightly more text than Scalding Rain. And we got fixed Stir the Aether Winds. Thanks, LSS. Stir the Aether Winds didn't need to be fixed. That card was barely playable anyways.
Uh,
So on to Earth and Lightning.
on to Earth and Lightning. Which one first, Alex?
Let's do Earth.
Good choice. The better element. Team Earth.
I guess what did we not talked about? Or
I mean we've
The
seen
equipment's
most
new
of
for
it. Yeah.
starters.
Yeah. The equipment is kind of non-synergistic. They both say if there are 4 more Earth cards in your banished zone, you do a thing. The Helm gets +1. It's Blade Break 1 normally. The legs say prevent the next 2 damage.
I think.
I
Well,
find these a bit.
I think the legs
Mhm.
are constructed playable.
I am not sure about that. I think if Earth Ranger was a thing, you would probably be right. But the 2 Earth classes in Classic Constructed are Wizard and Runeblade, and Stormstriders and Spellbound Creepers exist. And I don't think Well-Grounded is ever remotely playable in a world where your class has access to either of those 2 equipment.
That's fair. Well, if our predictions hold true and the 5th armory deck for this year is an adult Terra, boom.
It would
Locked in.
be pretty playable in Terra. Yeah, you got me there.
I could also see Florian playing Well-Grounded versus Kano or other wizards.
Interesting.
True. I
Where
mean,
you
yeah,
just
it is
where
like
you
a
just need to
Spell Void
you just
2
need to
equivalent.
live. You don't
Yeah.
need to like creepers to keep up most of the time.
So
Let's hit these
Rootbound
decompose cards.
Carapace. Yeah, Rootbound Carapace. Gotta be my favorite decomposed card in the set. 0 for 3 D-React. Decompose. If you do, which decompose is a keyword that says you can banish 2 Earth cards and an action card. If you do, you get effect. So Rootbound Carapace is decompose. If you do, this gets +1 defense. So it's evasive leap at the base, which was a playable card in Part the Misspell Limited. And it's an Earth card for future decomposes. And it's a decompose outlet that turns it into a 0 for 4 D-React. Card is sick. It's so good. And it comes in a cycle. Like all of the colors are playable in limited.
Yeah, I've played quite a bit of the Verdant Splits deck, and with this card and like the other decompose cards, and Fruits of the Forest Yum Yum being an instant to discard, it just means that most of the time I have Verdance's hero power turned on by at the latest turn 3.
I'm very excited. Card's crazy.
I think Rootbound Carapace is going to be the particularly like red, but maybe even the other colors, but it's going to be drafted as highly as like Blaze Headlong was in Uprising.
Mm-hmm.
I can
Yeah,
do that.
there are some strong pack 1 pick 1s in this set.
A lot of 3-for-7s in the set.
I think one of the few. Well, I might take Rootbound Carapace over it because it's a rare, but I think the common that I'm currently pack 1 pick 1ing, probably Cadaverous Tilling, which is a Earth attack action, 3 for 6 base, blocks for 2, but has decompose. And if you decompose with it, it becomes an 8 power. It gets +2. I think just like rate wise and synergy wise, that's sort of the card's just a slam dunk.
Mm. Yeah. I mean, kind of all of the Earth cards follow this trend, right? They're like not embarrassing at the base. The other rare Summer's Fall, which we talked about earlier, kind of aura hate, but it's also just a 2 for 6. Cadaverous Tilling, 3 for 6. Turns into a Wounded Bull, which I guess people really, really like. I don't really get it, but
You wouldn't understand.
I wouldn't understand.
Another card that I've been in love with in the Verdant Splits deck is the red Fertile Ground, which is an Earth instant that costs 2. It says gain 2 life, and if there are 4 or more Earth cards in your banish zone, instead gain 5 life. And this is the card that convinces me that life gain is worth more than 1 in this format. Ray and I will argue about that after this, I'm sure. Um,
I'm gonna save it for post Tampa because we don't have time tonight.
Yeah.
Okay. But it's just been super impressive in a format that doesn't have Arcane Barrier, meaning that I could just stick this in my arsenal until my opposing hero tries to overextend, take like no block on my Red Autumn's Touch, go to 3 or whatever, because they think that they're gonna kill me with their unblockable arcane damage. And then I just gain 5 and deal 1 damage back to them out of nowhere. Now all of a sudden the tempo of the game has completely swung because they're gonna have to block everything I do since they chose to overextend. Just classic wizard. Like when you overextend, you get punished.
Mhm. What do we have in Lightning that's exciting? Or are y'all? Is there anything else you want to talk about in Earth? There are
Um,
some auras. They're not particularly good because rune blades have ways to blow them up, and so I'm nervous about them.
yeah, I think the
Yeah,
only
but
other one I'd want to specifically call out is Blossoming Decay. Is a 2 for 5 decompose earth attack, blocks 2. Uh, but when you decompose with that one, you gain a life, and if you are activated in Verdance, you are getting a 2 for 7 out of your earth card that can decompose you. And if you hit the decompose threshold, like with the decompose from Blossoming Decay, like you'll get the full 2 for 7 value there,
Mhm.
Burdens, and I think that's just a really great rate card there.
it's really worth more. Anyway, moving on to lightning. I don't know if we saw. I don't know if we talked about lightning form, but I think it's great.
I
Yeah,
don't think
Uh,
anyone will argue that with you.
nope. Card's phenomenal.
uh, yeah. But 1 cost, 5 power attack that blocks 2. When this hits, create an embodiment of lightning token.
Yeah.
so,
Block of the Featherwalkers is a great card, and this is way easier to do.
so I do think I made the joke about how Wizard got 6 saps. Let me summarize like 3/4 of the lightning cards for you. Red 0 for 4 blocks 2. Conditional go again. That's like 3/4 of the lightning cards in the set.
Yeah.
So if you want to work for it, you can do some 0 for 4s with go again.
Don't forget, there's like a couple other 1 for 5s without go again.
Oh wow! And some 0 for 3 buffs.
I actually think so. I think it's actually more of an interesting card for more so for constructed than for limited. It's probably still good in limited, but Flittering Charge is one of the 0 for 4s with conditional go again that says if you've played an instant card that's chain link, this gets go again.
Mm-hmm.
There's Electrostatic Discharge is sort of the big one. It's basically a Nimblism variant that is an instant. So
Yeah,
you
this
can.
one seems. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say you could do like a Flittering Charge, Electrostatic Discharge to get the go again, and then follow up with any 0 cost thing, and it's a 3 card 11 in limited. Is real strong.
The other thing that's really nice, I think, about electrostatic discharge. So obviously, it's not strictly worse lightning press because it works on doesn't work on 2 cost or greater. All right. Well, it's strictly worse lightning press, but it's still a buff that gets around Warmonder's diplomacy, which I think Aurora is going to really appreciate as a rune blade. I guess it like helps Volzar amp for Acilio, which is cool.
Yeah. Uh, I've been juiced by this card. It's exactly as you describe it. Chase was playing Acilio, played a flittering charge into electrostatic discharge into Fry for 6 go again, into a Comet Storm for 5 and 5.
Oh my god.
Good thing I had Fertile
Jeez.
Ground in my arsenal to live
Hey,
at 2.
seems good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a lot of damage.
Second Strike is a cool one too. It's another one of
Mhm.
the potentially a 0 for 4 with Go again. It's a 0 for 3 unless you've done the thing. But it's when this attacks, if you've dealt damage this turn, this gets +1 and Go again. So if you've hit someone already with any kind of damage, oh actually, excuse me, if you've dealt damage this turn, you can shoot yourself with a shock and turn this on.
Mhm.
Or the old Rosetta Thorn, you could direct the arcane at yourself sort of trick. Uh, but yeah, I think Second Strike is very good. I think it's a constructed playable card across various formats. And then the one that was weirdest to me was Trip the Light Fantastic. It's a 1 for 5 lightning attack. It's a 2 block, but it is the complement to Fruits of the Forest. So
Yum
Yum
yum.
yum.
I hate you both. Just kidding. So it says instant discard this, prevent the next 2 damage that would be dealt to you this turn. And similar, I think this card is very innocuous looking, and once we start playing in this format a little bit more, so far that looks like the only like lightning defensive trick that we've seen, if I'm not mistaken.
Twinkle Toes is a
Oh,
defensive trick.
Arcane Shelter, the sigil.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember.
Fair,
Connectivity.
fair, yeah, but
That's
the
the one.
you know where there's a really good amount of life gain in the Earth card pool, there is extremely limited defensive capability in the Lightning card pool. So,
Yeah, it's totally fair.
and it
Yep.
makes sense. Lightning is obviously built to be the aggressor, and Earth is going to try and withstand that aggression. Um, but every once in a while, even the aggro deck's got to play a bit of defense. So, I think from a limited standpoint, I think Trip the Light Fantastic is going to end up being a really important role player. Like it's a blue that I think I'd really like to have in the deck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Fruits of the
That
Forest Yum Yum gains you 2 life, which is always good if it's just an extra card in your hand. Um, but it doesn't actually prevent you from taking damage. So like the surge effects from all the zaps that we have will still go off and either give Go again or uh, put the card back on the bottom of the deck or give them 2 resources. Where Triple Light Fantastic actually prevents that damage. So it's a little bit less always good, but it definitely stops on hits.
Yeah, this set's going to be a really interesting case study in like actual value versus flexibility, right? In Tales of Aria, 10 times out of 10, you're like, oh, Heaven's Claws, blue, 3 block, lightning card, like it checks all those boxes. Trip Delay Fantastic is only a 2 block, but it's always able to prevent 2 damage. And yeah, finding a important balance on which to prioritize in a set with a lot of unblockable damage sources is going to be fun to figure out. Right.
Does that think
yeah.
we do it?
I mean, I think yeah. Any final thoughts? We just hit most of the set, I think.
The art of the set is cool as shit.
Arya always kills it.
Yep. I, the Runeblade vibe, the Elemental vibe, it's all sweet, and I want to brew so bad. I cannot wait to go.
LSS, you nailed it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Ready to see Majesters and Legendaries because I
so
have a
so
feeling the
much so.
Legendaries will be very engine-y.
Yeah, agreed. But
All right. Well, if you enjoyed, then feel free to like or subscribe or comment. I guess what now that Ray Bradbury has burned all the books in Flesh and Blood, what hero are you going to be playing in Constructed now? Now that you have freedom from our overlords?
tyranny of reading.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. Well, what is
I
that?
know my answer.
Oh, okay.
Don't forget to pour one out for balance of justice.
Pour one out for balance of justice. No one's ever drawing 2 cards ever again.
Doesn't happen.
And hey, if you see us in Tampa, please feel free to say hi. We would love to, see who our viewers are.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Ray and I will be there. Sorry,
Alex will be with us in spirit.
In spirit. All right. Thanks for hanging out. We'll catch y'all next time. See ya.